Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. I am indeed Jon Robinson. I'm IT Director of Blinkbox. I'm going to need a clicker to advance my slides. And I'll press it now. There we go. So, I'm IT Director of Blinkbox. I'm an ops guy at heart. I don't really know much about development. Feel free to leave if that's going to be a problem. I was early to Blinkbox. When we were a startup, we were venture funded. I was our second ops guy who joined there. We're now 400 strong. And I've been messing around with video on the internet for about 6 years. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organisation, where we're from, where we're going, about our recent history and some changes we've made, and talk about our journey into the cloud with Microsoft. So, worth getting out of the way, we were acquired about 3 years ago by Tesco. And Tesco is the third largest retailer in the world, 75 billion turnover. We have 20 million customers in the UK, footfall a week into a Tesco store, of which we have 17 million club card holders, our loyalty card program in the UK. So we've got a lot of loyal customers, a lot of data on those people. And 750,000 is an interesting number. We launched a tablet last year called the Huddle, and we sold 750,000 of those. And I know we're at a Microsoft event, so I was asked to take this slide out, but I haven't, because it's an Android tablet. But it'll become obvious later on why I'm talking about this. The Huddle 2 has been launched a couple of months now, having great reviews, and but an interesting thing about that is that 30% of them haven't been turned on yet. So we've got an interesting proposition that perhaps the cloud can help us with when they probably get turned on Christmas Day. But what is Blinkbox? We are a digital entertainment company. We're the digital entertainment arm of Tesco now, and we have three major businesses. We have Blinkbox Movies, which is our TV and movie service. We provide digital streaming of blockbuster Hollywood content into your home, and we're on almost every device. We're even on the Surface RT, is how wide our breadth is. And we also have a music service and a book service, which joined the Blinkbox family in the last 18 to 24 months. But I'm going to talk specifically today about Blinkbox Movies and the work we've done with Microsoft. This is a quick plug. This is what our service looks like. Please come and try it. If you have any feedback about the service, please talk to me directly. My details will be coming up at the end. We try to talk about ourselves as providing enjoyment for people. Movies and TV and music and books is, it's an emotional product. You don't watch or buy them because you have to. You watch it because you buy them or listen to them because you want to. So I think in that way we differentiate slightly from the core Tesco business, which is chiefly around groceries and sustenance and stuff that you need. Hopefully we're more about stuff that you want. So to our story, if I rewind about 2 years, we had an on-premises data center, like many of you have, fairly traditional stuff, Windows, Intel hardware, commodity storage, nothing too fancy, RAID 5s, RAID 6 arrays, nothing too clever. And our customer profile was increasing massively, and we had an order of magnitude increase in customers. We were going from the hundreds of thousands to the millions of customers every month. And there's a lot of problems that presents you when you're in an on-premises environment. So we needed to scale quite quickly, and on the back of that, we'd just been acquired by Tesco. So we'd just been acquired maybe 6 months previously, and we needed to work out what they were expecting from us in terms of an offering for their customer and the quality of that offering. As I mentioned before, we were a venture-funded startup, so we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants in terms of availability and reliability. We had a single data center, one big single point of failure, because we couldn't afford to do it twice. We couldn't afford to bring up another data center in a different area and put some sort of dark fiber between them or whatever to try and sync all this content. And we're talking about a massive amount of content. So we're up to nearly 30,000 movies and TV shows in our platform now, and a couple of years ago it was about 20,000. But we're still talking about 500, 600 terabytes at the time. So again, going out and just buying that and sticking it in another data center is very prohibitive in terms of cost. So we were at a crossroads, and this is why I put up Arrested Development, because we couldn't really develop any further with the data center we had. We were stuck in it. And the prevailing thinking was, okay, fine, go out and build 2 data centers, get some capital from our big, rich parent company, and try and make a fantastic service that will never go down. Try and aim for the 4, hopefully 5 nines. And we did the maths on that, and it was millions. It was millions of pounds investment we did up front. The scale was getting such that the storage wouldn't be fast enough if we carried on with our traditional commodity storage. We needed something a bit faster, maybe Isilon or something like that, which has got very fast random I/O. So we needed to look for a different option, and that's where we started talking to the different cloud providers. Now, Microsoft at the time was quite a nascent offering in Azure. Azure was this thing that really no one had heard of. It was a platform as a service only offering, so you couldn't run a VM in it. You could only run a web role to simulate an IIS app pool, so you could run websites and you can run, the storage was there. The storage was actually the thing that's very similar to what it is today, but there weren't a lot of options for us. And our platform is a fairly traditional .NET application. It's .NET 4.5 and SQL Server. So we needed some of the rich features that you get out of IIS, which you only get running it in Windows Server. If we try to transplant it into PaaS in Azure, it wouldn't have worked. We're missing features there. So we talked to those guys, and there are 3 things. This is helpful, this slide here. There are 3 things which we think we get a lot of out of Azure. We get availability, we get speed and scale, and we can do a bunch of things with costs. And that's not just around saving money, but it's also about empowering your operations engineers and your development engineers to do better work with the time they have. That's what I think. So what else can I say about this? It's worth mentioning it's an open platform. So whilst we are predominantly in movies and Microsoft Shop, we're about 25% Linux. And being in the industry we're in, sometimes we don't get to choose the sort of tools that we want to use. So if you need to, some of you will know, if you want to develop for iOS, until very recently you had to use the Xcode development tools that Apple provide you. Similarly, we have some challenges with Hollywood studios where we have to use certain DRMs, certain protection toolkits, which will only run on a Linux platform. So we needed it to be completely open. And I'm told that apparently 20% of customers in Azure today are Linux users. So it definitely has the openness to it. But anyway, to these 3 things. So the number 1 thing, which I've alluded to, is making sure that a customer is getting a fantastic experience and that they're getting a consistent experience. This is a real movie from our catalogue. It shows the depth of our catalogue rather than perhaps the quality. We've got some good stuff in a minute. I haven't seen it. I make no recommendation. But the point is that, going back to what I was saying earlier, we had to have this thing available 24/7 because Tesco's brand is on the thing, and we're a recent acquisition by them. We needed to convince them that we could take their core offering of value and consistency and make sure that the customer experienced that. More than that, we needed to make sure we had a platform which just worked. And with Azure, we get quite a few things which help us with that. So right now in Europe, we are deployed in the Dublin data center, and we're also deployed in the Amsterdam data center. So if we have a major networking event, let's say a cable gets cut between one or the other, or some major point of presence in the UK goes down, we can fail over to the other one with minimal effort. It's not completely automated yet, but it's pretty close. We're talking 20 minutes to do a full data center failover. Because of the storage system in Azure, we maintain those 30,000 movies in TV shows, both in Amsterdam and in Dublin. And the blob storage has 3 copies of that in one data center, and then 3 copies of it in another. So there's an awful lot that has to go wrong before you as a customer can't watch your movie anymore. And we serve simultaneously out both of those. So it's an active-active scenario. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that sometimes we'll be in a situation where a service will go down. We'll find a bug in a service. So I don't know, we'll find a memory leak in some badly written code, which is rare, but they happen. We are not beholden to the small fleet of servers that we have on the on-premises data center. If we need to spin up more to get us through an operational problem, such as a memory leak, then we can do that. So it allows us to maintain that reliability cheaply, only pay for what we use. So again, that's a big deal for us. The second thing is speed. And it's easy to talk about elastic scale and to talk about how straightforward it is in the cloud to spin up a lot of servers, to make everything very horizontal, and you've heard all this stuff before from any of the cloud guys. And that's true. We do get that out of Azure. Particularly for us, we have quite a specific requirement around compute encoding because of what we do with movies. To give you a very brief idea, and I know all of you won't be in video, but to give you a very brief idea of what we have to do. So what came out this week? Godzilla came out last week on the site. So the studio will send Godzilla to us, and that will be what they call a mezzanine file. It's a massive, high-resolution, very, very minor compression file. So it's something like 300 gigs is this one movie. We take that, and then we split that into a couple of different formats, which we then encode for all the different devices that we offer. It's a different encoder that you'll watch on an iPad, to the one that you watch on an Android, to the one that you watch on a smart television, to a games console. And they're converging, but they're doing it slowly. The point being is that occasionally you'll get a major change which you weren't expecting. You might get, some companies are quite fond of releasing devices and not letting anybody know what they're going to release until the day it comes out. So we've been in that situation a couple of times, and then I get a knock on the door from the CEO, and he says, "Okay, John, we need to encode our back catalogue now for, the iPad 6 or whatever. And how quickly can we do it?" And I get, a bit of pen and paper out, and I work it out, right? 30,000 movies times 25 formats times 1 petabyte of data. Let's see, 6 months. And funnily enough, he doesn't like that answer. So we have to do something different, and Azure allows us to do that. They have elastic scale. What is it they call it? Hyperscale across all of their offerings, whether it be pulling up 100 virtual machines in a matter of minutes, or whether in our case it be, okay, now we need 300 encoders, all 16 cores, all going flat out, getting this content done, getting it into that reliable storage, and then getting it to the customer. So there's that. But then you've also got speed of iteration and speed of experimentation. We're 400 people, but we're still fairly small in terms of our development operations teams. There's 8 guys in my team that run all of the platform stuff. But in larger enterprises, friends tell me that a problem they'll run into a lot is trying to just do a proof of concept or something. There's some new service come out, a new server, a new platform, and they want to just kick the tires on it and see if it works. But they haven't got the spare hardware lying around. There's red tape involved to get that hardware allocated to them. Maybe you work in a fantastic environment where there's orchestration and managed provisioning, but I think a lot of people don't. If you've got a Microsoft Azure subscription, you can spin those servers up, use them for a few hours, turn them off again when you're done. And it's that speed of iteration that is that is something you just can't do yourself unless you're a massive organisation that's really got their private cloud together. So for us, it's really, really key. A final point on speed. I mentioned earlier that we sell a lot of these tablets, these Huddle tablets, and we think we're going to have something in the high 100,000s of those under Christmas trees on December 25th morning. And I don't know what we're going to do about that, to be honest. You know, if all of them have in the box a voucher to come to Blinkbox, have a free movie, and the sales are going much better than we thought, and so we need to scale up to make sure we can meet that demand when the customer comes to the site. But I know that our best shot of being able to get there is going to be because we're on a public cloud platform. We're going to have to do a lot of work to get the database to scale correctly for that many new customers, new registrations, all of the things they're going to go through, which are causing a lot of writes for us. But if you look at the lead time, what are we now? Second week of November. So we're talking about 5 weeks to get that ready. I know that when I wasn't in Azure, we were looking at 2 or 3 weeks to get the hardware, get it racked up, provisioned, put OSs on it. Nowadays, it's much easier. You've got configuration management with Puppet and Chef and DSC, and you can do these things a bit easier. But the point still is that we'd be in the long grass if it weren't that we were with a public cloud provider. We wouldn't be able to breach that scale. We'd have no chance at all. And I would have to start having the conversations now with my marketing team and saying, can you scale back on this a little bit, please? Because I don't think we're going to meet the customer demand. And of course, the customer is king. But I think we're going to make it. It's going to be tough, but I think we're going to make it. We wouldn't have done it otherwise. Cost is something people want to talk about a lot when it comes to the cloud, and there's an expectation, certainly from my CEO and my COO, that the cloud makes everything cheaper. I don't think it does necessarily, but I think that you can do an awful lot to make it work for you. So one of the things I spoke about earlier around very easily being able to test things out and build things and then throw them away again, that's saving you cost all the time. Because now, if a developer wants to build a rig to test something out, they don't have to involve anybody else in that. As long as we've got the provisioning set up for them to go in with their subscription, build some machines, go into the gallery, put a template on it, they're good to go. So we're saving money there. There's a lot to be said, though, also about the capital expenditure you have to make. So one of the things I'm slowly learning as I move through the business world is that different companies have different priorities when it comes to how they spend their money. And for whatever reason, it was very, very hard for us to get a lot of capital up front to invest in this storage I was talking about, into these new data centers. So if you're in a situation where you can make your operational side very much more a direct cost of sales, you're going to be able to do that easily with the cloud. You bill per minute, you bill per second, you bill per megabyte, whether it be for storage or egress, and that can make the story to your CFO a much nicer one, where you can say to them, okay, marketing have got this planned, we're going to be building this thing, I think we're going to need exactly this much money, and it scales exactly with how many customers you bring to me. I think that's quite a nice story to be able to tell. I think also when it comes to CapEx and comes to buying a lot of kit, I've never seen, and it might just be me, but I've never seen anyone buy a boatload of servers and then still be using them for the same thing 3 years down the road. 3 years, the servers are about, something like 20% as fast as they would have been in year one, relatively speaking. The new servers are 5 times faster. I think that what more commonly happens is that you use it for some particular requirement for a year, maybe 2 years, and then something else comes along which you need to migrate to, or your platform burgeons and you need to buy new servers in because you need to be able to support more people. And then you buy the new kit. So then you've got a mix of old kit and you've got a mix of new kit. And this thing goes on and on and on. That's not a great return on the effort you have to put in to maintain those servers that are 3 years old, 4 years old, if you work on a 4-year total cost of ownership. We've been in Azure for 18 months now, and we've had 4 price cuts. And as long as Microsoft keep parity with Amazon and with, the likes of Rackspace and Google, I think we're going to see more of those price cuts coming. So just something to think about, actually, what are you spending your money on? We've got these new D-series VMs in Azure now, which are SSD backed. We've got the new Godzilla class, the G-series ones, which are larger than certainly any workflow that we need in Blinkbox. So you've got a lot of options there, but you can turn them off and on as you need them. You can turn them off and on for these spikes as you need them. I think you can save real money there, particularly in terms of your hosting costs. But the big one for me is the opportunity cost of what your staff are doing instead of maintaining tin, instead of spending time replacing hard disks when they burn out. We had something like 150, 160 servers in our estate, so it wasn't massive by any means, but there was always a problem. Every couple of days, or every maybe a couple of times a week, there was always a problem with something. And someone has to visit, and someone has to change something, and there's a ticket, and it goes on and on and on. I'd much rather my guys were spending their time doing things that are really valuable to the business. If they were upskilling in automation, in making things consistent, and that they were trying to move the company's technology forward instead of spending their time fixing things which anybody could fix. I think that's actually quite a big deal in terms of what you get out of the cloud. So we made a really big bet on Azure, and at Blinkbox we are now using all of these things, which are Microsoft Azure cloud services. A couple of things to call out. So I talked about how we use Windows and we use Linux, and they're both treated as equal citizens in Azure. They really are. And now with the support for Docker and containerization, Microsoft is showing they really are pushing the boundary of what's possible with a cloud platform. I think they're at least the equal of any other platform out there. Your mileage may vary depending on exactly what you're trying to do, but they're very, very close. Barracuda, you may know as a provider of firewalls and security equipment in the enterprise. They've got a web application firewall, which we've been using for about 6 months now, runs as an appliance within infrastructure as a service on a VM, gives us the rich features that we need, which we couldn't necessarily get from just building something ourselves. So in the Azure store, you've got thousands of companies that are putting their appliances in there, which may allow you to do the enterprise class workflows that you need, which you might not necessarily expect to be able to see in a public cloud offering. I think I'm running out of time here, but another thing to call out, Redis caching. Redis is a caching service, and what's nice about it is it's probably one of the sort of global standards now for how you do caching in a web application. In Azure, you can run it in a bunch of different ways. If you need it to be absolutely as fast as possible, and you need to be able to tune it yourself and make sure that you do all the configs and manage all the little nuances of it, run it in a VM. If you don't want that, if you maybe don't have a Redis expert on your staff, run it as PaaS and let Microsoft take care of it. They'll give you an SLA on it, and you can just forget about the thing. So there's a few ways in which you can cut that. So to wrap it up, in my opinion, Azure is this. Azure is better than we can do it. We're a small team at Blinkbox. We've got big content, big challenges, and we're providing what's hopefully a fantastic service to millions of customers every month. But we'd much rather focus on doing that than we would on building servers, than we would on figuring out how best to store our content. In 2014, I don't think that is where I want my staff to be focusing their time and efforts. Developers love it. We can enable them to build systems very, very quickly, try stuff out, throw it away again, and let them just get on with it. There's integration with Git, there's Visual Studio Online, which allows you to put all of your source code up there, deploy it easily to multiple test scenarios, run your own A/B testing, whatever you want. The ops guys love it. I've talked about why, but generally speaking, it allows them to get on with doing interesting stuff. The list of things in ops is always longer than the stuff you have time for. And hopefully being in a public kind of environment like Azure allows my guys to spend more of their time doing the stuff on that list they wouldn't normally get to. That's what I just said. The other thing that really surprised me, and this is only accelerating from Microsoft in the last 6 months in particular, is that this is not the Microsoft that I grew up with some SKU that releases every 2 years. We actually have releases into a few of the products we use in Azure every 2 weeks, like clockwork, new features, and we can't keep up with it anymore, which I never thought I'd hear myself saying. In conclusion, it's given us a massive amount of agility, along with some great cost savings in a number of ways. And I would implore anybody thinking about trying Azure out to just try it out. They'll give you a month of it free, let your guys loose in it, and hopefully you'll see some of the benefits we have.